ladies and gentlemen, I guess we're ready to get underway. We're going to start the deliberative session February 10th, 2017. Snow date for the Timberlane Regional High School deliberative session. First, we would like to do the Pledge of Allegiance, I believe we are. Yes? No?
Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Timberlane Performing Arts Center.
Take your hats
For
off,
your
please.
safety, please take a moment and
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I believe we have a quick PSA announcement.
good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Timberlane Performing Arts Center. For your safety, please take a moment and locate the nearest exit. In case of an emergency, please exit through the door closest to your seat. Please take this time to turn off all electronic devices. Refrain from using flash photography, and no food or drink are allowed in the auditorium during performances. Fire regulations strictly prohibit standing in the aisles during performances. And now, we are pleased to bring you tonight's performance.
Well, yeah. We are going to have a performance by the Timberlane Regional High School Select Choir performance of the National Anthem. So if we could rise again, I apologize. Take off our cover and it's all yours.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Great job. Awesome. Especially the tenors.
Nice job.
I did tenor.
Never mind, it is.
One says anymore either.
And if I could have, we'll start at either end of the table. The Budget Committee members, if you could introduce yourself. Jack, why don't we start with you and we'll work our way right down this way.
Jack Sapia, Atkinson, school board member.
Donna Green, Sandown School Board.
Gregory Spiro, Atkinson School Board.
Donna Green, Sandown School Board.
Everyone knows who I am.
Yes, we do, Jack.
George Manos, Danville, Budgetary Committee.
Alan David, Sandown, Budget Committee.
Kate Delfino, Atkinson Budget Committee.
Kelly Ward, Sandown School Board.
George Stokinger, Business Administrator.
Lee Doobie, Budget Committee, Sandown.
Peter Belo, School Board, Plastow.
Dr. Earl Metzler, Superintendent of Schools.
Jim O'Shaughnessy, Counsel for the District.
Sue Sherman, Plastow School Board.
John Hughes, Danville, Budget Committee.
Stephanie Doobie, Danville School Board.
Julie Hammond, Atkinson Budget Committee.
Dan Guide, School Board, Plastow.
David Gurns, Budget Committee, Plastow.
Nico Nafako, Student Representative.
Thank you. We'll go over the meeting rules. No smoking, turn off your cell phones, or set them on vibrate. Each person will treat every other participant with courtesy and respect. Any voter who wishes to address the meeting will approach the microphone, be recognized by myself, the moderator, and will state his or her name and address. And if you could spell your last name, if it's not kind of common spelling, it would help out for the clerk. General comments will be limited to 3 minutes maximum. Speakers shall remain at the microphone for answers to all their questions. All questions to the school board, budget committee, or other officials or meeting participants will be directed to the moderator. Each voter who desires to speak on an article will be given a chance to do so before any voter is given a second opportunity to speak on the same issue. Makers of motions and seconds will state their name for the district clerk. Only one amendment will be allowed on the floor at any one time. No amendment to an amendment will be allowed. Such proposals will be dealt with as subsequent amendments after the first amendment has been voted upon. Amendments must be in writing and signed by the voter, along with their printed name. Motions must be made in the affirmative, no negative motions. Secret ballots must be requested by 5 voters in writing and signed by the voters, verified by the clerk, and made before the vote on an article. Challenges to any voice vote require 7 or more voters immediately after it is announced, who then may request a written ballot. Municipal Budget Act of 10% limit will be explained by the school board chair or the district attorney if necessary. Reasonable discussion on both sides of a motion will be allowed before a call to question will be accepted by the moderator. A 2/3 vote is required for a call to question. Any amendment on financial amounts must be stated in dollars. Percentage figures must be converted into the dollar amounts. Upon any ruling by the moderator, a majority vote will prevail. Robert's Rules of Order will be used as a guide only this evening. At any time during the meeting, these rules may be altered by a majority vote. So if there's no objection from the floor, we'll adopt these rules.
Mr. Moderator?
For the conduct of the meeting. Yes, Mr. Green.
Thank you. Arthur Green, Sandown.
Could we have the microphone, please? Go ahead, Arthur.
Do I have a...
Yes, you do.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'd like to move a change to the rules. I'd like to move a limit of 3 minutes on all presentations, including presentations by district officials.
What's your motion?
I move a time limit on all presentations, including those by district officials, of 3 minutes.
Second.
Okay, the motion been made and seconded. I'll open the floor for discussion.
It's Friday afternoon or Friday evening after a snow day, and I think everyone in this room is here because they came here to do the business and have had plenty of opportunity to acquaint themselves with the issues.
Yes, Jack.
You recognized me with skepticism. I guess the question is does anyone on the board or the budget committee have a presentation that lasts more than 3 minutes other than explaining and going through the budget? Which I don't believe that's a presentation, that's edification for the board.
If I may, Arthur, if you can write your motion down on a piece of paper and hand it to me or Nancy, she just raised her hand, I'd appreciate that, please.
That's a question.
If somebody on the board wants to, anybody up here on stage, if your presentation is going to be longer than 3 minutes, raise your hand. Okay. Do you want to speak against the motion?
No, I'm more than happy to limit to 3 minutes if that's the will of the people.
Okay.
It is about the budget.
Any further discussion on the motion? There being none, all those in favor of this motion?
Moderator, I'd like to speak to that. Anytime that we get in
You
discussion...
could state your name First and last name for the district clerk, please.
Leon Artus, A-R-T-U-S, Atkinson. When we start deliberating the budget, there could be a lot of comments here or presentations here from the public that would require more than 3 minutes to discuss any part of the budget. So I speak for this motion.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? There being none, all those in favor of the motion to limit everyone tonight to 3 minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. Noes?
No.
Okay.
Mr. Moderator, could
We're-
we call for a show of cards, please?
I'll get to that. Yes, that's my next order of business. You were all given a voter card from your supervisors of your checklist. If you want to pull them out, my assistant moderators, if you want to come up, we're going to do a voter card. So your arm might get tired, well, maybe not. All those in favor of limiting everybody to 3 minutes signify by saying aye, holding your voter card up. Aye. Oh, okay. But you got to hold your card up so they can count it. I'm sorry.
Hold your card.
You also had one up in the booth, so I'll be looking up there. Those against the motion, okay, you can put your card down. Those against the motion, no, raise your voter card.
I have 4.
Thanks. Oh, so that's it. Motion passes 95 to 61. So, without any other objections from the floor, we'll adopt these rules for conduct of this meeting, subject to change. Okay, we're ready to move forward. I guess the first order of business is the non-registered voters, to allow them to speak. I'll read them off. Dr. Earl Metzler, Dr. Roxanne Wilson, George Stokinger, Attorney Jim O'Shaughnessy, Deb Armfield, Christy Michaud, Jeff Dow, Beth Rancon, Susan Rascott, Michelle Oja, Douglas Ralph, Michael Hogan, Kenneth Henderson, Angelo Fantasia, Tony DiBartolomeo, Jim Hughes, Barry Chuligan, Ryan Richmond, and Kevin Peck. There's no objections to anybody on this list. They'll be allowed to speak at the meeting. On with the warrants. Steve, are we going to be having the... It's on? Here it comes. Well, I gotta read this stuff. So. starting with page 7. Starting with page 7, I gotta read through it. Yeah. First session of the annual meeting. You are hereby notified to meet at the Timberlane High School, 36 Greeno Road, Plastow, New Hampshire, on Friday, the 10th day of February, 2017 at 7 p.m., the snow date. This session shall consist of explanation, discussion, and debate of warrant articles number 2 through 8. Warrant articles may be amended subject to the following limitations. Warrant articles whose wording is prescribed by law shall not be amended. Warrant articles that are amended shall be placed on the official ballot for a final vote on the main motion as amended, and no warrant article shall be amended to eliminate the subject matter of the article. Second session of the annual meeting. Voting on the warrant articles number 1 through 8 will be conducted by official ballot to be held in conjunction with the town meeting voting to be held on Tuesday, the 14th of March, 2017, at your town election polls in Atkinson, Danville, Sandown, and Plastow. And you all know, hopefully, where your voting stations are. The first article will be the election of officers. So now I guess we'll get on to article number 2, the operating budget. Shall the voters of the Timberlane Regional School District raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations, by special warrant articles or other appropriations voted separately, the amount sent forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by the vote of the first session, for the purposes set forth therein totaling $71,328,092. Should this article be defeated, the operating budget shall be $71,559,011, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Timberlane Regional School District or by law, or by the governing body, may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 4013, 10, and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. The warrant article 2, the operating budget, does not include appropriations proposed under any other warrant articles. A majority vote is required. It's recommended by the school board, 701, and it's recommended by the budget committee, 10-0. Is there going to be a...
I'd like to move Article 2 to the floor for discussion, please.
Is there a motion made to put on the floor for discussion? Is there a second? Second. Motion seconded by Mr. Guide. Is there a presentation by the...
There is.
There is?
There is.
Okay.
And in keeping with the vote, I will limit this to 3 minutes. What I think we can do here is quickly move through these slides. A lot of these, if you watched the public hearing. Can you hear me now? I'm going to... There we go. I'm going to move quickly through these slides in keeping with the 3-minute limit. A lot of these slides were presented at the public hearing, so if you were able to be in attendance or watch the video of that, these slides are very familiar to you. Our budget was developed in accordance to the state statutes, RSAs 32, 33, and 195. Our guiding principles throughout the budget season was the mission statement that was developed by the budget committee at the commencement of the budget season. We can go to the next slide. The process included a review of the actual expenditures in prior years, consideration for our staffing and enrollments, as well as deliberation of the capital improvement projects that were slated in the capital improvement plan. We worked very closely and well with the administration, department heads, teachers, and many others throughout the district. All in all, it was a great budget season for us. Next slide, please. Getting into the meat of the budget. The 2016-17 budget, or this current budget year, the school district budget was $70,194,990. The proposed budget, or the budget request that was presented to the budget committee, was $73,527,608. Through the course of our deliberations and meetings, that budget was reduced, and that brings us to the proposed budget for the 2017-18 school year. That represents a budget, as was read earlier, of $71,328,092, representing a $1.1 million increase over the previous year, or a 1.61% change. Next slide. Some of the major budget drivers, and these aren't all of the budget drivers, these are just the ones that are in excess of $25,000. We'll go through some of the highlights here. Salaries and benefits at $1.4 million. Tuition, $250,800. Student transportation, $132,610. Software, books, and information resources, $95,498. Professional services, $82,048. Supplies, $78,428. The SAU, $44,022, and cleaning supplies, just over $27,000. Areas of decrease, and these are areas that were decreased more than $25,000, but not all of the decreases. Equipment, $25,241. Travel, $27,000. Bond interest of $84,000. Utilities, $223,499. The capital reserve of $250,000, and site and building projects at $422,904. How am I doing for time, Mr. Moderator?
You got about a minute.
About a minute. We're not going to go through all of these object codes. They're there in your printed material for you. We'll hit the top of the list. Salaries is the largest area of our budget at just over $34 million, 34.3. That's an increase of almost $800,000. Getting to the bottom line, we're at $51,926,671, or a $1.4 million increase. Looking at the other object codes, the largest increase was tuition at $250,000 increase, representing $1.989 million. We'll go right to slide 20, which is the bottom line. So subtotal of expenses is $19,401,421, a decrease of $271,780. However, the total budget, again, $71,328,092, an overall increase of $1.3 million.
Mr. Moderator, on a point of order.
Pardon me?
A point of order, please. Mr. Dubé mentioned that people have the printed material. That's material that I didn't see distributed at the front. I don't know if other people have it. I have this package, but you're apparently referring to a different one. I assume it's online, but I haven't seen it in the printed material.
Does anybody have the answer for Mr. Green of this presentation? Like,
Part of this packet?
okay.
I don't think so.
There's a stack of packets at the entrance, Mr. Green.
I believe, Mr. Green, we have the slides. You can get this whole packet online and download it. I do see some people out there do have it. No, nobody has it. Okay.
I went to the back a second time looking for that because I saw Donna had it, and I did not see it at the back.
Okay. Would somebody like to answer that so we can move along?
Will they be on the budget committee site or the school board site?
It's on the school board website.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'll open it up to the floor for debate. Any comment on the operating budget, article number 2?
Arthur Green, Sandown. I have a motion. I'd like to move to amend Article 2 by striking the amount $71,328,092 and replacing it with the amount $69,714,514. And I have that in writing for the clerk.
There's a motion. Is there a second on the motion? Second by, sir, with the cranberry shirt, or state your name
That's
for
Mr.
the...
Artis. Mr. Artis.
Okay, seconded by Leon Artis.
Actually, I think it was Mr. True.
Okay, Donna, if you could speak into your mic so
Yeah,
I can
I
hear it,
am.
but there's been a motion made and seconded. Let's open up the discussion for the motion, Mr. Green.
Just for the record, I'm trying to show that I believe the person you're recognizing was Mr. True. in the.
Well, yeah, but I also saw Leon Artis, so I'm going to go with the second for Mr. Artis. Thank you. Mr. Green?
And Mr. Moderator, I do have a petition from 5 members asking for a secret ballot on this matter.
Okay, if you want, bring it up here, please.
See a lame duck?
Oh, come on, I get to use this? Please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
You're welcome. Hold on. So, obviously, everybody who signed this is here this evening, correct?
Yes.
Donna, Robert? Well, I'm just going to inquire. Donna Green's obviously here. Robert Nickerson? Marcy? I can't read the last name. She... Tapley. Thank you. Maureen DeFelice? Maureen? Okay. Chris? True? Arthur Green. Okay. Thank you. So,
Thank you. We've argued that people are entitled to an honest default budget. So what's the basis for saying that the default budget put forward by the district isn't an honest default budget? It's for this. First of all, it includes about $1.5 million of one-time expenses that should have been struck from the default budget. Second, it includes about $150,000 associated with new positions, new stipends that do not belong in a default budget. It includes 90% of the default budget, so-called, is identical to the district's proposed budget for the future year. The default budget, people know, is supposed to be the current year budget with a few adjustments. In fact, the default budget put forward by the district, 90% of the dollar value of that budget is identical with the current budget. On the other hand, I've proposed a default budget. I call it the responsible choice default budget or an honest default budget. First of all, it's in complete line item detail, something which apparently the school district has been unable to do with their own default budget. The line item detail has been published. It's been on the web in multiple places since January 31st. Anybody who is interested has had an opportunity to crawl through it in full detail. Let me tell you a few things about the budget. First of all, it funds the entire existing staff of Timberlane School District, including salary increases mandated by collective agreements, both teachers and support staff. It covers all of the replacement of computer and other equipment needed to keep our stock of equipment refreshed and our students serviced. It does not include getting new stuff. It includes provision for all the ongoing repair and maintenance of the facilities. It does not include money to do capital enhancements or capital improvements to our facilities and site. It includes, thank you. It includes $600,000 on lines where the school district actually requested less money next year than they have this year. Well, the default budget carries forward what's in this year's budget, so there's $600,000 of room in case there's some area where the default budget cuts a little bit too tight. So the district has the opportunity to prioritize as much as $600,000. In fact, in this room, we all know this school district has abundant money and will be able to do an excellent job carrying forward just as well as the district is operating in the current year. And that's what a default budget is all about.
thank you, Mr. Green. Mr. Belo.
Thank you. I just want to point out that that soliloquy just now was all about the default budget, which has nothing to do with the motion that's on the floor. The motion on the floor is to change the budget.
The operating budget.
The operating budget. And all I heard were objections to a default budget, which this, I believe the voters cannot change.
Well, the motion on the floor is to change the operating budget from 71 million to 69 million. So if
Right,
he
and the
wanted
whole-
to talk about a default budget, that was up to his presentation.
Well, I'm
So
just pointing out to people that what we were
that-
hearing about was default budget, which had nothing to do with the operating budget.
Thank you, Mr. Velo. Yes, sir. Right here at the,
How you doing? I'm sorry, Chris Longchamps, Sandown.
your last name, Chris?
Longchamps.
Longchamps?
Long and then Champs.
Thank you.
I guess I want to talk about what Arthur had brought up. I do agree with the one piece of it that I do feel like the default budget shouldn't have been inclusive of the capital improvements. And I can't see for the life of me, and maybe I'm missing something, how the default budget could be higher than the proposed if you had stripped out all the capital improvements. So that's a question I guess I have. I guess the only concern I would have is, and I don't think I want to thank the Budget Committee, first of all. You know, while I'm standing up here, you guys put a lot of work into this. I really appreciate that. Also, the school board. I don't know how you guys do it. I watch it on TV sometimes, and I have to fall asleep before you guys even done. I don't know how you do it. But anyway, so that being that, I think Mr. Green's number is a little unrealistic. I know that there has to be contingency. I know that we've had surpluses in the past years, you know, to the tune of, you know, $3 million. And I understand that things happen. You know, the boiler breaks or something happens, and there's some contingency in there. But I think what I'm going to propose after Mr. Green is done with this is a more realistic number. I mean, I think the bottom line is, you know, the budgets keep increasing. You know, I think we all feel the strain of this. I can see that the numbers are going up. I mean, it's the same. I'll give you a little analogy at work. It seems like every year I get a 2% raise, and then my health care goes up 5%, and I get a net zero. You know, so pretty much I've been operating on net zero for 5 years, somewhere in that vicinity. So what I would propose, you know, is that a realistic number, you know, if we had capital improvements, and I'm going to be very conservative on this. I would say that about $700,000 would be a very conservative number for capital improvements. And I'm going to propose that we reduce that out of the proposed budget. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Green, I noticed. Go ahead.
Thank you. The reasoning for Mr. Green's proposal is that since the default budget is inflated, that the only way to give people an honest choice, as the law intended, is to reduce the proposed budget to make it what a honest default budget should be. So the school board has within its power to reduce the default budget up until the ballots are printed, but they won't. So the only way for the people to ensure that they have an honest choice as the law provides is to reduce the proposed budget to make it what the default budget should be. And we're giving people an opportunity to have an honest choice, and that's what this is about. And I would like to say that we build surplus upon surplus upon surplus every year. This year we're probably going to have more than a $3 million surplus. And I want to create some doubt about how lean our budget is. And there were three things I want to talk about. One, the legal expenses. In the last few years, we've had 6 legal entanglements in the district. 4 of them involved, one way or another, withholding public information. 3 of those cases, in my opinion, didn't even need to go to court. So, with the legal line, I think there is way too much public money being spent on this. We also have conflicts of interest that I think address fundamental governance issues that show that the district is not managing its money well. We have Mrs. Metzler, who's on a 5-year contract at $50,000 a year. We have Chief 3000, an online reading program that we bought out of unbudgeted money for $183,400 in September, and it turns out that Mrs. Metzler is a consultant with Achieve 3000, something that was not disclosed to the board at the time of the purchase.
Okay. You had 10 seconds, but I am keeping it, the time here, so, 10
Thank
seconds,
you.
Mrs. Green, to wrap it up?
Thank you. And, you know, I've said my piece. I think that the conflicts of interest that are very evident here are an indication that there is
Thank you, Mrs. Green.
management problems.
Mrs. Gurns?
Ann Gurns, Plasto. I've been a resident of this area for over 50 years. And I have to say, for the most part, the school board and the budget committee have served this district and our wonderful school system very well. There are several pieces of information that I think are missing here. I'm not very good doing math in my head, so when somebody tells me they want to reduce a 71 million plus budget down to 69 million, blah, 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 I'd like to know what that number is. What is the number that it's being reduced, please? And I would like to ask the budget committee how much of the 71, I guess the new budget is 71,328,92. That's the one for 17-18. How much of that is untouchable? In other words, these are set costs that cannot be changed. They're contracts. They're various kinds of things that they're just there. You put them in a list and you add them up. What is left that $1.9 million would slash and burn? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Artis?
Mr. Moderator, thank you. I think when we were at public hearing, I brought the issue up with the Budget Committee, and also the school board addressed this. In the last, well, let's start with 2011, they had almost $2 million they didn't spend in the budget. In 2012, they didn't spend almost $2 million in the budget. 13, it was $2 million. 14, it was $2,250,000. 2015, it was $3,852,167. However, in September of 2015, that was re-reported to be $4.3 million. 2016, they didn't spend $3,799,045. We're talking, I believe, if I'm correct, Mr. Green, you're talking about a $1.6 million reduction? That would be, in my opinion, just a drop in the bucket compared to what they haven't spent in years past. And believe me, I'm not encouraging the school board to spend all of their budget. However, I think this reduction in the budget is way too low, based on history. Thank you.
Thank you. Rob, did you want to see? Mr. Collins?
If I could, is this on? So I know Mr. Doobie touched on this a little bit as chair of the Budget Committee, but I was the school board liaison over to the Budget Committee. I know he only had 3 minutes, so maybe I'll add a little bit more color to this. Just so people understand, we initially got the budget, as he said, it was around $73 million, $73.5 million. From that, we cut, the Budget Committee asked the administration to work with them to cut almost $1 million in positions, $240,000 in benefits related to those positions, $61,000 was a correction in paving. There were several other capital items that were removed, including $40,000, $180,000. We actually touched on the first time since I've been on the board, the gas line, which is $110,000, so the utilities of the schools. We cut that line 35%. We cut $35,000 from electricity, which represents a 5% cut, and we cut $78,000 from the oil budget, which represents 31%. So there were also a number of other ones for $100,000 for the high school front office, $60,000 for a connector between the buildings here on this campus. There were, and then after the public hearing, there was a $200,000 cut that was a blind cut by the budget committee that asked the administration at their discretion to remove what they thought was what they needed to remove. So my point in telling all this is that the administration, when after all the presentations were done to the budget committee, the principals, the department heads, everybody came before the budget committee to make the case for their budget. That number compiled was about $73.5 million, or an increase of 4.75% year over year. After the budget committee was done doing the work that they did, digging in with the administration, you have the number that you have here now, not the motion that was made by Mr. Green, but the number at $71,328,000, or an increase of 1.6%. So my point is, we've already cut a lot. We've cut a lot of positions. We've hit the utility lines, which I'm not very comfortable with personally, especially the oil line. And we've done the job that the voters asked us to do, 18 individuals. The school board and the budget committee both overwhelmingly support this budget. So I ask you to vote no to this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Mark Sherwood, Sandown, New Hampshire. First of all, just in reference to one of the other speakers here, taking something of offense at the amount of surplus monies that were spent on unnecessary lawsuits. I find that a little bit humorous, since that is one line item that could have been knocked off.
But if I could interrupt
absolutely.
for a minute. Hold on for a minute. Okay, I want to remind everybody of rule number 2. Each person will treat every other participant with courtesy and respect.
Understood.
We also want to remind the voters that I'm not going to accept personal attacks. I will gavel everybody. Let's just be courteous to everybody. We differ in opinions, but let's be courteous, please. Go ahead,
I would
sir.
like someone on the board to address the surplus issue. I've seen it on the media, electronic media, several times, and we've heard several people speak on it. One of the members of the school board had mentioned the extra fund surplus that we're building up year after year after year. That seems to be building a picture that the $1 million, $2 million the next year, $3 million the year after that, that is surplus, is going to some slush fund in the Caymans. My understanding.
Again, sir, please.
No. That.
I mean,
I'm
we know
quoting.
we don't have an offshore account, so please. If we
Okay,
keep
so
the comments.
I would like a member of the board who is knowledgeable to explain where the surplus goes. My understanding is that if I'm budgeting my monthly or yearly expenditures, and I budget in at the end of the year I have 1 to 2% more left in the bank account than I've written checks for, that rolls into the next year to offset. It does not go into my own back pocket. I think there's a misconception. If somebody could explain that, where those monies, the surplus monies, have gone, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Okay. I'm gonna recognize Jack Sapia first, then Peter, because these people haven't spoke. So, go ahead, Jack.
Thank you.
To the amendment, correct?
I'm going to speak to the surplus.
The surplus.
Right.
Okay.
Well, so when you think about it, $2 million of almost a $70 million budget is a very small percentage. You cannot go over that bottom line. You can't do it. But how do you get to that $2 million of the 1.8? And I'll use one example. And this is something you should be proud of the administration and the school board for doing. Last year, we budgeted $380,000 for a masonry project to point up the walls that were profusely leaking in the gym. The job came in through hard work at $180,000. It's almost a $200,000 savings. That accounts for part of that surplus. So to say that you cannot come that close, as a selectman, I sat there, we came very close to going over the bottom line one year. I think Adele could speak to that, but As a percentage, when you're managing over 1,000 employees and hundreds of millions of dollars worth of assets in facilities that are literally falling apart, I think that's pretty good management. That's just my opinion. And then, I've heard a little bit of talk about cutting out some of the capital improvements. One of the reasons why our facilities are in the state that they're in is because we don't address them. I could very easily say, yes, we can put this off to next year, like we put the paving off, okay? It doesn't matter to me either way, or a new roof. But remember, the consequence of that is that paving will cost you more when it needs to be done, or the roof that's 30 years old. The cost of that, who in this room's expenses have gone down over the last year or the last 10 years? They go up every single year. Well, it's the same thing here. Inflation hits the school district just like it hits your homes. So, yes, you can put off some capital plans, and that will be at the will of this legislative body if you want to reduce and take out some capital improvement, because we're all feeling the pain. Everybody up here pays taxes too. So we all are getting squeezed. The question is, when do you step up to the plate, and when do you start improving the facilities? Because if you don't, it is going to cost you a lot more down the line. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Belo.
Thank you. I just would like to answer Mr. Sherwood's question about what happens to surplus. No, we don't have an accountant at Caymans, nor onshore for that matter. But so this budget we're doing. We're voting on it, this month or next month, and it will be for the year starting, middle of 2017, going into the middle of 2018. Mr. Stokinger, the Budget Committee, everyone does their best efforts to come up with how much everything will cost that year. They are invariably wrong by a small amount, just as I think all of us are wrong and are incorrect occasionally in our own budgeting. Hopefully we have something left over. In cases of individuals, you can actually run a deficit because people can use credit cards, they can borrow, whatever. School district, a town cannot do that. By law, we have to not go beyond our budget. If at the end of the year there's a surplus, and there is no line in the budget called surplus, but if there's some left over because of things like Mr. Sapia just said, because items like that, what we do is we basically give that money back to the voters. And the way we do it, and the way it's done, is that in the budget for the year after, before the school district goes into the towns and asks and says we need X amount of money from each town to run the district, we subtract off the amount of surplus. So we ask for less the next year. So no, we don't keep that money. It goes, one way or another back to the voters, but back to the towns. And no, it's not. Well, it has not always been 1.5, 1.8, $2 million surpluses. Back a few years ago, I believe it was the high school had a septic system that failed. And I think at the end of that year, we were about $300,000 or $400,000 of surplus. There have been multiple years under $1 million left at the end of the year. And in my book, that's pretty good budgeting. We typically, have a surplus of something like 2% or 2 to 3% maximum. So 2 pennies, 3 pennies on the dollar are money we don't spend and they give back to the voters towards the next year. That's probably better than I personally do in budgeting my household, and I'm pretty good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beal. Anybody new on the amendment? The amendment. Mr. True?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Chris True, Sandown. I rise to speak in favor of the amendment to cut $1.6 million from the budget. And here's why. It's been quite a few years that we have not had a default budget less than the operating budget. I believe it was back, maybe it was in 2014. The default budget was a small amount less, like 400,000. To the shock of everybody, the taxpayers said, we'll take the lesser amount. But what we've had in the recent years is a default budget that is larger than the proposed operating budget. What this means is the taxpayers do not get a choice. They do not get a choice of less taxes. This 1.6 that has been proposed is coming from one-time expenses that were left in the default budget. One-time expenses are not to be left in the default budget. You may not like cutting budgets, but it is inherently unfair to leave one-time expenses in the default budget. The governing body, the school board, is the only one who can define what a one-time expense is. If the school board says, for a wild example, the paving of a parking lot that cost $1 million is not a one-time expense, that $1 million gets rolled into the default budget. And that is what the complaint is here. We have over $1.6 million of one-time expenses. Granted, the governing body says they aren't, but they are, and that reminds me of the old story Abraham Lincoln told me. If you call a dog's tail a leg, how many legs does the dog have? Well, of course, the answer is 4, because it doesn't make any difference what you call that tail. It's not a leg. And it doesn't make any difference if you say a one-time expense isn't a one-time expense. It is a one-time expense. And that's where the 1.6 comes from. We can defeat this budget. We will enable this budget to go forward as everyone wants. But in that enabling, you are telling the residents they do not get to make a fair and honest choice of what their taxes will be.
Mr. Hammond.
Dave Hammond, 22 Coventry Road, Atkinson. I actually have a question. It's kind of indirect. I notice on the reductions, capital reserve is being reduced by $250,000. Is that a correct understanding of, so this year we would not, for this budget, we would not be putting $250,000 in capital reserve? Is that correct?
Somebody have an answer to that? Mrs. Green?
That is for the voters to decide. That's a warrant article.
Can you speak into the mic, please?
I am. Yeah. That is for the voters to decide. It's a warrant article this year, and all that reflects is really a bookkeeping thing, because it was a warrant article, so that money was put in, but it can't go forward like that. So the voters have another opportunity. No, we're not taking 250 out of the capital reserve. It's just a bookkeeping.
Okay, I was interpreting
notion.
it that 250,000 was not going in.
You get to vote on it. That's a warrant article this year for you.
George.
The 250 you see is being removed from the 17 budget. And this is a classic example of one of the one-time items that the Greens are accusing us of not removing from the budget, that we do remove from the budget. Each year, it is a warrant article that the voters vote on. So for the 17 budget, they voted to put $250,000 into the capital reserve fund. That's part of the 17 budget. Building the default, I have to take that out as a one-time item from the 17 budget to build the default of the 18 budget. So this is removing what was voted a year ago as part of the 17 budget from the 18 budget. Later on, you'll see it's a separate warrant article to do it again as part of the 18 budget.
So it just has to be added in every
It's an annual thing that the voters add in individually each year.
Mr. Green, hold on for a
Mr.
minute.
Moderator, you asked people to refrain from personal attacks. Mr. Stokinger found it necessary to single myself and my wife out for a personal slam. That's absolutely not true. We did not criticize
Okay,
the removal of, no, we did not criticize
No, hold
the
on a
removal
minute.
of that any more than we criticized.
Mr. Green, Arthur, please, and I did remind everybody that personal attacks won't be accepted, but I obviously am conferring with Mr. Collins here, but I don't think that I hear a personal attack. He was
You
referring,
absolutely did.
I didn't hear a personal attack. If I hear it, I will gavel him like I'll gavel everybody else. Please. Thank you. Mrs. Stokinger, are you finished?
Well, since there's so much discussion about the default budget and paving was just mentioned, another item that is in the default budget, there is paving of this very property.
Okay, but if I can remind everybody, we're coming back to we're talking about the amendment, so the amendment is to reduce the budget to $69 million. This work? Oh, there we go. Can you add to the surplus that, can you answer Mr. Hammond's question?
I think
Well, it seemed to be on,
Mr.
I'll say, these one-time items that are in the default.
Okay.
Very briefly, paving was mentioned. The paving of this very property is being done over a 5-year cycle at approximately $100,000 to $120,000 every year. That is what is in the default budget because the school board agreed to that plan over a 5-year period to complete the paving of this property. That's why the school board, that's why I put it in the default budget and the school board agreed to it.
Thank you.
So to call paving a one-time item, well, it is over a 5-year plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Collins, did you have something to add, or?
I just want to say, to speak to something Mr. Chu said about the $1.6 million in one-time items.
Yeah,
And
can
that's
I just,
why it's
can I just
justified.
finish?
Yeah, let Mr. Hammond
Thank you.
finish it.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Hammond.
I just have one comment, and this is in reference to a comment that Mr. Belo made, and this is in regards to the surplus. And for it to be used for a replacement of a septic system, I thought that the reason that we have the capital improvement funds are for those types of items. Things like septic systems have a known life, and that I would not envision that we use any type of contingency or overage from the budget for that type of repair. We should be using long-term capital improvement funds, planning for replacement of roofs, replacement of septic systems, whatever upgrades Mr. Sapie was talking about that are necessary for the facilities. So I just wanted to make that point.
Is that a form of a question, or you just want to make a point?
I just want to make a point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything new on the amendment? The amendment to reduce the budget to $69 million. Mr. Gerns.
Yes, I would like to have Mrs. Gurn's question about what items or categories would be affected by this reduction in the budget. We didn't get an answer on that.
Would anybody like to answer that question?
May I answer without eating into my ability to comment?
Not yet, Mr. Green. Anybody from the Budget Committee, or? Mr. Guy, we haven't heard from you this evening.
That's actually.
It's a good thing. Is it turned on?
No, it might be. That's actually up to the new board if this cut went through. It's not up to this board, it's up to the new board after the election. So the board would decide, I would be one of the persons that would decide what happens and what gets cut.
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to call the question. We're dancing in circles. Okay.
Still people.
Yeah, I'm not going to allow that. I think we're still I don't want anybody new on the amendment. On the amendment to reduce the budget to $69 million. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, I don't.
I believe Mr. Gerns was asking if we could get an explanation from the folks who are asking for the $1.6 million cut. Could they explain in detail what that cut is? What specifically would be cut in the budget to come up with $1.6 million?
Well, I guess Mr. Green, do you have an answer to that question?
I'm not standing here with a printout of the budget. So the Timberlane budget is about, no. I'm talking about the proposed default budget that I've just moved. The Timberlane budget is about 250 lines. I've published online, and it's been online since January 31st, a full 250-line budget showing the district's current year budget, my proposed default budget, and the district's proposed budget for next year, as well as my guess as to what the district's default budget is. So there is full line item detail, which has been available for absolutely anybody to inspect line by line. Now, that's not really the full answer. The full answer is, number one, the capital improvement site and capital improvement buildings lines are set to $1 each. Two, all of the lines, so what's in those lines? Things like, there is a gym roof replacement. There is replacement of the high school gym air handling units with air conditioning. There is replacement of the courtyard windows in the high school. There is phase 5 paving. So there are a long list of items like that, adding up to about $900,000. So capital improvements would be set aside. There's about $250,000 in new equipment, principally computer equipment, that would be set aside. There is also about $600,000 in the budget for replacement equipment, whether that be desks and chairs, computers, photocopiers. That is untouched. So the idea, continue operating next year as we're operating this year. There is about $150,000 for 2.4 new headcount and for several stipends in other areas. About $150,000. That's taken off the table. There's about $100,000 for raises for administrative and clerical staff who aren't covered by collective agreements. That's taken off the table. There's a $10,000 increase in the legal line. That's taken off the table. I can go on, but does that give you an idea? Does that help? Am I helping at all for you to understand?
No. Yeah, first of all, the questions have to come through the moderator. You don't ask the body. But your time's up. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Sarah Mockamer, Plastow, New Hampshire. I'm going to address this to you, but really my question is for him. Did he just say that he took off the air conditioning for the gymnasium and the fixing of the windows in the courtyards from your budget? Have
Correct.
you played in that gymnasium when there's no? I did, and that was in the 90s. Have you sat in those?
And it's been that way.
Sat in those classrooms with those old windows from the 1960s?
Mrs. May Coleman, please. No. Please.
They need to get fixed.
Under
that
a
air conditioning is
default budget,
needed.
you operate another year the way you've operated since you were in school.
Mr. Green,
You
please.
took it out of the budget, and it's needed.
Mrs.
It's
May
there
Coleman,
for a
please.
reason.
Okay. Is there anything new, anything to add to the amendment? Mr. Green, have a seat, please.
Sure.
Go ahead, sir.
I would like to speak to what Mr. Green was talking about with the gymnasium. I teach in that
You got
facility.
Your name, first and last name?
Oh, sorry, Mark Pasquini, Sandown, New Hampshire.
Thank you.
I teach in that facility, Mr. Green, and you are responsible to give me a teaching facility or a working environment that is comfortable and that is suitable. We have a teacher that wears a winter coat in there.
Mm-hmm.
Is that acceptable to you? Do you wear a winter coat in your house? I'm sorry.
No, we're
sorry.
The question that comes
I
to the
apologize.
moderator.
I guess my question to him is, would he want to work in a condition where It is unbearable. It's hot in the summertime and it's freezing in the wintertime. That would be my question.
Thank you very much. We're not going to answer that. Yes, Mrs. Withy.
Naturally.
Lisa Whitby, Plastow, New Hampshire. I'm
Thank you.
sorry, but I am completely confused because we have a motion on the floor to amend the operating budget, yet we keep going back and we're addressing the default budget. They're two different things. So you've got everyone in this room completely confused about the
correct.
whole thing. So when you say you're going to cut from the budget, tell us where you're going to cut. Don't talk about the default budget. Talk about the budget that we're going to have to work with. You're confusing everyone.
Okay, you are correct, and it was brought to my attention at the beginning of this discussion that Mr. Green's presentation was about the default budget. But it's not my place to sit here and explain to him or anybody of what their presentation is going to be. So, if there's anything new to the amendment, other than that, I'm going to move the question, and we're going to go to a secret ballot.
Please
I want
allow one
something
comment.
new.
Thank
Now,
you.
have a seat, Mr. Green. I'm not recognizing you. Mr. Sapia, one last comment.
I'll be very quick. Nope. It's just
Turn
not
on his
working.
mic, please, really quick.
And then shut it off really quick.
Thank you.
I just want to address Mr. Hammond's comments around the capital reserve fund. Yes, you do use that for maintenance, and you're into, but that needs to be voted on. So say you want to put in a new septic and you want to use money out of that reserve fund, that has to go to ballot and it gets brought up as a warrant. But during the course of any year, a transformer could break, the septic system could go. The septic, I believe, off the top of my head, was $250,000. Those are unanticipated expenditures that nobody knows about, and you can't use those funds to fix that capital, that part of the capital of our facilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Leon, switch places with the guy behind you. Somebody new that's going to speak on the amendment. The amendment to reduce the budget to 69. I'm going to recognize him first because I made him swap, and then you, ma'am, you're next.
She was here first.
Go ahead. Your name for the...
Sorry. Trisha Collins, Plastow, New Hampshire. I guess the bottom line as a parent with 3 children in the district is how is this cut in the budget going to affect the safety, the happiness, and the quality of education that our children deserve? We live in a world where our safety should be paramount. We should be working with law enforcement to improve our lockdowns, our shelter in place, and come up with a system that's going to make our children safe. There are many, many other alternatives. There's run, hide, fight. We need to be thinking of the safety of our children. We need to be thinking of their happiness and their quality of their education. How much are we going to cut? What is going to happen? Are we going to be jeopardizing our children's safety? That's what I would want everyone in this room to think about. Their happiness, the quality of education that kids who are in public schools deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there somebody that can answer that question? Mr. Guide.
No, I can't answer that question. Honestly, we don't know what we're gonna. If this goes through, it's gonna be a long discussion, and the safety of the children would be the last possible thing. That's not something that would never be jeopardized.
Thank you. State your name, sir.
Wayne Randall, Atkinson.
Thank you.
I'm just down here to speak in favor of the proposed amendment. The idea of it is to give us a choice as voters. So if this passes, then it gives us a chance to say, hey, we want to lower the budget. We want to start cutting. And it kind of sends a message to these people up here. If you don't want that, you can still vote against the proposed budget and you'll get the default budget, which is higher. So I don't understand what all the upset, the emotions are. Vote for the amendment. Give us a chance as voters. Give us the choice to lower our taxes instead of raising our taxes. And if you don't feel that it should be lowered, then you can vote against the proposed budget and you'll get the default budget, which is higher.
Thank you. Okay. Leon, again, anybody who hasn't spoken on it first, Mr. Heffernan.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Dennis Heffernan, Plastow. I would just like to speak against this amendment. Being a former member of the Budget Committee, they work extremely hard They review these budgets. You know, there's comments made that they only meet twice a month. There's a lot of work that goes into these budgets. There's a lot of time spent on their free time studying these budgets and asking questions of the department heads. So I hope you honor the work of your budget committee and your school board and do not support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sherman, Mrs. Sherman.
Sue Sherman Plasto. I worked on the CIP committee for over a year, and I'll tell you what I learned, because I think every day is a learning experience. We've deferred maintenance and repairs to our facility that have an effect on the educational quality of our kids. So when I see students sitting down here, many of I was honored to have as students, here on a Friday evening with the rest of us, saying, yeah, that gym is hot and too cold. Or those windows in the high school, that maintenance, those windows, the water leaks in on computer equipment and on science equipment, which I dearly care about. It affects the quality of our kids' safety and education. So every time you keep cutting and cutting and cutting, and we take it out, as Mr. Green is suggesting, out of those maintenance and repairs, it's deteriorating our facility. We have to take care of that, because that takes care of our kids, in my humble opinion.
Thank you. Anything else on the amendment to reduce the budget to $69 million?
Kim Farrer from Danville. I also sat on the CIP committee. I'm also a selectman for the town of Danville. I'm not necessarily in favor of this amount of a cut, but I do want to speak to why we're speaking about the default budget. Typically, I know in our town, our default budget is always less than our proposed operating budget, because it does give the voters a choice. I respect the work that the budget committee's done and the school board, but we need to have a budget that's going to give the voters a choice. Here we're looking at increases both ways on both budgets. I think it's only fair to give people a choice.
Thank you. Dan, go ahead, and then
You labeled this the honest budget. That's an insult to everybody that put their time and work into the budget that they proposed.
Okay. Ma'am.
Just briefly, I want to follow up on what Sue said about the capital improvement plan. Timberlane, thanks to Sue Sherman and John Sherman and the others who worked on the CIP committee, now has a comprehensive capital improvement plan going out 5-6 years. So when the budget committee sat down and looked at capital improvements, we had that capital improvement plan in front of us. There's a structure to this, there's a logic behind it. I personally am very alarmed that those who have stood in favor of this amendment can so blithely cut $900,000 out of the capital budget that directly impacts the quality of the learning experience for our students. There is no doubt about it. Our athletic facilities are subpar. They need a lot of help. Those are the facilities that get pushed to the side as unnecessary costs. We can't do that anymore. We have aging structures. We have to ensure that we take care of them and that we provide all of our students with a quality facility that they deserve.
Anything new to the amendment? Anything new to the amendment?
Waiting to
Mr.
go.
Goldman. Yes, sir.
John Goldman, Santa. Mr. Doobie called the question earlier. I'd like to recall the question. Let's move on, please.
Motion to...
Point of order, Mr. Moderator.
Your point?
The point is, as long as people wish to talk and are standing at the microphones, that they be allowed to speak prior to any motion.
If you have anything new to add to the amendment, I'll let you speak. If not, I'm going to move the question. Go ahead, Mr. Artis.
Point of order, Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
We've heard the same 6 people speak on and on and on.
Thank you.
The question has been called
please,
twice.
John, please. Thank you.
The question's been called twice.
Thank you. Anything new to add to the amendment?
Mr. Collins pointed out that they cut the budget and worked on the budget all year long. And considering that they had almost a $4 million surplus last year, and with all that cutting that they did, they still brought forth a budget of $71.3 million. That's $1,300,000 more than what they had to spend last year. The point is, they still have more money than they had last year to do the exact same thing as they did last year. In this new budget, with this motion to cut it by 1 point, so no kids are going to be hurt. In reality, there is no reduction or cuts. It's just a reduction so that we can have a fair budget.
Thank you. There's been a motion to call the question. All those in favor of calling the question signify by saying aye. Aye. Noes? No. Ayes have it. This is going to be a secret ballot on, this is going to, an amendment to the budget. And instead of reading the whole budget, this is going to change the $71,328,092 to $69,714,514. That's what you're going to be voting on. So it's going to be a secret ballot. The way this is going to work is you're going to show your card to the 3 student council members at the middle of the entrance or exit. When you show them your card, they're going to hand you a secret ballot and a pen. You're going to walk out the door. You're going to fill it out, and then there's going to be moderators out there to direct you to put it into the secret ballot box. So go and vote. All right, here we go. On the amendment to change the operating budget to 69 million, there were 50 yeses and 178 no. The amendment fails.
Point of order.
So back to the original. Point of what?
Point of order. Can I do that?
Oh, go ahead.
You recognize me? I'd like to limit that for reconsideration.
Motion been made to limit reconsideration, a second by Mr. Collins. All those in favor to limit reconsideration on the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. No? Ayes have it. Thank you. Mr. Stack.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Brian Stack, Plastow, New Hampshire. I want to thank all the Budget Committee and school board members, Dr. Metzler and his staff, for all their hard work to put together this budget. I think it was a lot of work done by all. Thank you for all the hours that you put in at meetings, all the beatings that you take on social media and whatnot. It's all done for the right things. I'd like to move the number, Article 2, as it's written, forward, $71,328,092.
You're going to make a great moderator someday, Mr. Stack. That's awesome. Okay, the warrant article on the floor now is the operating budget at $71,328,092. Any discussion on the warrant article? Yes, Mrs. Green.
Thank you. I believe that the request for a secret ballot applied to all amendments, so I think we can dispense with the secret ballot on this motion.
On what? I don't understand your question.
Is that correct?
Mrs. Green,
Yeah.
please, to me. I don't understand your question.
I'm just saying there doesn't have to be a secret ballot on this motion.
Okay, great. No, we're
Yeah,
done.
right. I'm just clarifying that.
That's correct. Anything on warrant article number 2? Yes, Mr. Bealow.
I believe Mr. Stack tried to move the motion and had it seconded. I think we're up for a vote on that.
Well, let's vote. I understand that, but in fairness to the warrant article, I put on the floor to open it up, and if there's nothing new on the warrant article number 2 itself, Mrs. Green.
Thank you. Yes, there is something new. I would like the audience and the taxpayers of the district to understand what the tax impact is of this budget. For Atkinson, it will mean a 5% increase. For Danville, it will mean an 8.2% increase in school taxes. In Plastow, it will mean a 7.6% increase in school taxes. And for Sandown, it will mean a 9.3% increase in school taxes. Come your bill in November.
Thank you. Anything new on the warrant article? There being none, it will be placed on the ballot as read. Moving on to Article number 3.
Mr. Moderator?
Steve. Yes, Mr. Velo.
I'd like to make a motion to restrict reconsideration on Article 2.
Second. Motion been made to reconsideration on Article number 2. Is there a second? Second. Second by Mr. Gurns. All those in favor to restrict reconsideration for Article number 2 signify by saying aye. Aye. Noes? No. Ayes have it.
Mr. Moderator, I didn't get the second for after Brian Stack made the motion.
It was me. It was Mr. Guy.
Thank you.
Moving on to Article number 3, Capital Reserve Fund. Shall the voters of the Timberlane Regional School District raise and appropriate up to $250,000 to be placed in the school building construction, reconstruction, capital improvement, and land purchase capital reserve fund established in 1996, with such amount to be transferred from those funds in the June 30th, 2017 unassigned fund balance available for transfer on July 1st of this year, which were apportioned as capital expenses in the 2016-17 in accordance with Article 6 of the Timberlane Regional School District Articles of Agreement. No amount to be raised by taxation, a majority vote required. Is there a motion to place this on the floor for debate? Motion by Mr. Gurns, is there a second?
Delfino.
Thank you. Is there, Mr.
Want me to read this intent?
Sir,
Up to you, I'm gonna open it up to 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm supposed to, I think. I was asked to.
Oh, I don't have that list.
So the statement of intent, if they could flip the slide. I think you have to go 2 ahead. This article puts money aside for future capital improvements. Money is only put into this capital reserve fund if it is available at the end of the fiscal year. Capital expense appropriations are calculated in accordance with the Timberlane Regional School District Articles of Agreement, Article 6, apportionment formula as follows. The capital expenses of the Timberlane Regional School District payable in each fiscal year shall be apportioned on the equalized valuation as most currently available as determined by the State Tax Commission.
Okay, I'll open it up to the floor. Any discussion on Article number 3?
Chris Wallen from Plastow. Just a question, how much is in that fund now? I mean, we put this money in there every year. There has to be by now there ought to be a good balance.
Mr. Stokinger.
As of June 30th, there was $1,116,000 in the fund.
Thank you. Ms. Kiska.
Barbara Kishka, Plastow. I have a question. Will that intent be appearing on the ballot?
Does anybody have that answer?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Collins.
Yes.
Yes,
Then
they
I-
will.
Then I would like to make a motion to remove the intent from the ballot to keep us legal. I'll hand this to you.
Motion's been made to amend Article 3 to remove the intent statement. Is there a second? Your name, sir?
Raymond Fournier, Atkinson.
Raymond Fournier Atkinson. Okay, on the amendment, I'll open it up to the floor for debate. Mr. Belo.
I believe Mrs. Kiska mentioned that she didn't believe this was, it was legal to have intents. Actually, we have advice from legal counsel that says it is. So I know that in Plastow, the Plastow town attorney, after 20 years of allowing intents to be put on, came up with some different ruling this year, but this isn't Plastow. And that's one attorney versus another.
Okay, I don't know if Bob Harvey is here, but I believe, I don't know if it was our attorney or the state attorney that said that because intents were not mentioned as something you could have on the warrant, that they could not be on the warrant. Steve, do you know? Mr. Ranlat?
Yes. Mrs. Green.
Thank you. I only became aware of this issue through Ty Vitale, who is running for Budget Committee and School Board, and he's a Plastow resident. And he obtained a letter from the Attorney General's office to the effect that intent statements are not permitted on the ballot. I haven't seen the letter yet, but I just had a conversation with our school district attorney during the break, and he said he just doesn't actually know. So I think if we were provided with the Attorney General's letter, I think that would be very helpful in helping us comply with the law. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Green. Mrs. Sherman.
So I would ask the body here tonight for you to consider that for many, many of our voters, the only information they're going to have is what's on that printed ballot. And so without a factual intent statement of what the Capital Reserve Fund actually is, many voters have no understanding of it. You do because you're here, but there are many, many other people throughout the communities that don't come and maybe are not watching. I don't know why they do it on a Friday night anyway, but so I beg of you to consider this carefully. We have the ability to put this factual statement on our ballot, and I believe it should be on there for our voters.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. Mr. Sapia.
Thank you. I like intent statements. We've been involved in warrants in Atkinson that were confusing to the voters. So I think it's positive that we do this. And if I'm not mistaken, all of these warrants go before DRA. And they say whether they're legal or not, and they help you sculpt them if necessary, but that's my understanding of it. And if they're not legal, DRA doesn't permit them to go on the ballot.
Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, Jim Garrity, Town Moderator from Atkinson, and I'm here fresh from moderators training, which I go to every year, as do some of the other moderators in the room. And one of the things that was specifically covered this year was things like intent statements, or what they refer to in training as editorials. And they said, can't do it. So you may want, before you, I'm not even sure if this amendment is necessary, but you may want to check the RSA and specifically call Steve Buckley at the local government center, the attorney, one of the attorneys who ran this training, and speak with him directly and ask him about that. I'm pretty sure, as I recall, because I made sure I made that note, because in our town meeting, I didn't let anybody put anything that said anything except what DRA lets you put on there. But that would come under sort of the editorial definition. So that's just some input from very recent moderators training. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's why Jim gets the big bucks.
I'm going to ask the opinion from our council.
Hello. Let me turn this on.
If we could turn his mic on, please.
Is this on? Nope.
Or if he has to turn it on.
Is this one on? Yes. I've read and I'm fairly familiar with the statutes, and there is no statute prohibiting the placement of intent statements or what people call editorial statements on the ballot. There is law that says you can put certain things on the ballot, such as the recommendations of the board and the recommendations of the budget committee. There has, in very recent years, like maybe this year, been a move to interpret the authority to put things on the ballot to also mean absent that specific authority, you can't put other things on the ballot. That has long been the Attorney General's position with respect to tax impact statements, which the Attorney General's office years ago said you cannot put the tax impact statement on the ballot or on the warrant without legislative authority to do so. I looked at the statute. I talked to a number of colleagues in my office. We represent, as a firm, probably as many or more school districts and municipalities in New England as any law firm in northern New England. And it's generally our consensus that it's okay to provide that information to the voters. It's inherent in the authority of the board when it prepares the warrant to be able to inform the board what it's, the voters what they're voting on. However, if folks want to be sure and certain that the warrant is legal and lawful and something isn't going to be prevented from being put on the ballot, then you can certainly amend it to remove that language and be assured that it is valid and lawful.
Kim Farrow from Danville. Speaking for, as a member of our Board of Selectmen, we do always remove this before the ballot is printed. We do put it out for deliberative for discussion, but we remove it from the ballots. So I would tend to agree with the previous moderator.
Thank you. Any other? Mr. Hammond.
I have a question. I'm trying to understand. The wording here says money is only put into this capital reserve fund if it is available at the end of the fiscal year. If that intent statement is removed, does the way the original article is worded, does it make any difference? Is it still the same that money only gets put into the capital reserve if there is money left at the end of the year, the way that's worded? Is that correct?
I see most people shaking their head yes, so I would think so. Did that answer your question?
It does, but I have one other thing I'd just like to address. Mr. Sapia brought up a point earlier in regards to my point about that septic system.
On the amendment to remove the intent statement, not about a septic system. I have to. I'm going to move this meeting along because I hear it might snow around 9, 10 o'clock. So we're gonna be moving it on. On the intent statement, the amendment on the floor on the intent statement. Yes, Leon.
I think at this particular point, you can't vote on something that may be illegal. That being said, I'd like to advise that the board get a second legal opinion. Otherwise, taking a vote here, if it doesn't change the legality of it if it is illegal.
Thank you. One more comment, Jack, and I'm going to move the amendment.
Yeah, I guess this is a question for the attorney. If it is illegal, DRA, at the time they review these, would take it off, is my understanding of how the process works. So that's a question for the attorney. Am I correct in assuming that?
So if the article passes as currently drafted, meaning it passes with the intent statement, the intent statement could still be removed prior to the preparation of the ballots, if it is indeed illegal or improper for it to be on the ballot.
So it would be checked?
Thank you.
Yeah, and we would certainly look in to confirm that it is proper prior to putting it on the ballot, but there is no law on this. This is sort of opinions that are now circulating in the state. There is no clear prohibition or no clear law stating it's illegal, and I don't believe there's an illegal opinion from the Attorney General's office saying that these intent statements are illegal. I think I would have probably have encountered that, and I have heard of no such opinion.
Thank you. I'd like to make a comment. Steve Renlett, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen in Plastow, and I'm a Plastow resident. The way as it was explained to me when I contacted with the Attorney General, if you're familiar with criminal codes and RSAs, the criminal code tells you what you can't do. The RSA on the ballots tells you what you can do, but it doesn't address intent statements. So that's how it was explained to at least me, and then we voted as a board. So just to make that clarification also. Yes, ma'am.
Myra Hogan, Plastow. If it is illegal, is it a possibility to have is it legal to have a separate piece of paper explaining these intents, not on the ballot? but available for voters.
Yes, Ms. Sherman. Mrs. Sherman.
May I answer that question?
Yes, you
To the best of my ability? So Myra, again, I don't think there's any legality here. Again, I'm agreeing with what the lawyer says. But you can prepare a voter's guide, and that would be up to the board, the school board, to prepare a voter's guide that we would hand out separately. That's what Plastow has done. It's quite a large document at this point. I don't know if it's finished yet. Maybe the board chair would know, but.
Thank you. There being nothing further, I will give him the respect because he is the moderator for the town of Plastow. Yes, Mr. Harb.
Thank you. Robert Harb, Plastow, New Hampshire. I know this isn't Plastow, but I'm in Plastow. But I might be able to assist the attorney at some point this evening. I do have on my cell phone a opinion letter from the Attorney General regarding intents, which was given to me. And that's probably the letter Mrs. Green is mentioning about, which caused us in Plastow for our warrant articles to delete the intent. I don't have your email address, but I can meet with you and send it to you. You can read it. And I believe the attorney is correct. It is an opinion, but I must tell you that the opinion of the Attorney General is that they shouldn't be on the warrant. And that's why Plastow took them off the warrant. And I'll share that opinion with you, which I believe is the same one that Mrs. Green is mentioning. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. So the amendment is to remove the intent statements from this warrant. Would be nothing further. All those in favor of the amendment to remove the intent statement signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. I'll go with the noes. Okay, the original article is the Capital Reserve Fund. That's on the floor to discussion. Any further discussion on the Capital Reserve Fund warrant article?
Kim Farrow from Danville. You mentioned that there's a balance of well over $1 million. How is that invested right now?
It's invested by the Danville Trust. Thank you. That's invested by the Danville trustees of the trust funds. It's not in the school hands. It's in the Danville trustees' hands.
Right, I'm aware of that, but how is it invested? What is it invested in? I mean, because if we put $250,000.
Contact the Danville trustees.
Okay. So no one knows the answer to that.
Mr. Collins? Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. George, are you done?
I'm done.
Okay. Mr. Collins?
We actually asked the trustees of the trust fund from Danville to come before us several times, and they didn't. And instead, they sent me a spreadsheet that has everything in detail, which I could forward to you if you want to see it.
I'm well aware of the MS9. I just was wondering if anybody on the school board had any, or budget committee or the district had any idea of how that $1 million is invested in what investment instrument, because if we're putting $250,000 into a capital reserve fund that cannot be removed except by warrant, and we're not getting a decent rate of return, we're in essence losing money on that investment.
Thank you. Mr. Stokinger?
Mr. Collins can probably verify this, but I believe the trustees changed who they were investing with to improve the rate of return just this year.
Listen, can I make one?
Yeah.
That's my understanding too. And I also like to state that the school board has no control over the trust fund. That's why it goes to Danville trustees. So we can't control it.
Thank you. Anything further on anything new on the warrant article for the Capital Reserve Fund for up to $250,000 to be placed in? Anything new? Yes, Mr. Hammond.
So I have a question, just clarification, clearly understand. No new taxes are required. This is only if there's money left over at the end of the year.
Yes. That's correct.
Okay. And so what I'd like to do is make a motion to...
Do you have it written down?
No, I don't.
If you could write it down.
While he's waiting?
Yes, Jack. Well...
Yeah, I'd just like to say that this is, with the state of our facilities, let alone the things that failed during the year, that And I sat on the CIP, and I'd like to thank the Shermans for doing a ton of heavy lifting on that committee. We have a lot of things before us that need to be addressed. This is a very nice way of deferring some of the spikes that we would see in our budget if we do not start saving. We do this in Atkinson. We have a number of capital reserves, so it kind of keeps our tax rate as level as possible. This is a very worthy thing for us to be doing, especially in the state and the condition of our facilities. So this is dearly needed, and it's a smart thing to do.
Thank you. Dr. Farrar.
I just want to go back to Mr. Collins' point on the school board inviting the Danville Board of Trustees. We did reciprocate and said we would be welcome to have them at our Board of Selectmen at any point in time. Just so everybody is clear, Danville does maintain that trust fund. $750,000 of that trust fund was moved into a high interest earning account, with the remainder being kept behind. We are aware that you can't pull it out for at least a period of 6 months. So right now there's $750,000 in a CD earning better interest. It's kind of surprising to me that no one was aware of that in the school district until I took a look at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hammond, do you have your amendment ready? Because if not, I'm going to move the question.
So the amendment is to change the amount of funds in Article 3 to raise and appropriate up to $500,000 to be placed in the school building construction, reconstruction, capital improvement, land purchase, capital reserve fund.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Sapia. So
Can I just explain why?
Go ahead.
Okay. All right, so we've heard a number of people here talk about the disrepair of the facilities, and this has been a long-standing problem. And I know that Mr. Sapia has made brought forth ideas to get some of these things addressed. But, you know, back to some of these points where we're using unused funds at the end of the year to make emergency repairs. We know how long a roof lasts. We know how long a septic system lasts. We know how long windows last. We need to be putting more money away on an annual basis so that we can plan for these and not wait till they fail and do an emergency repair which costs us more. If we know a septic system is going to last 20 years, on year 19, if we've set the money aside, you just replace it. And then there's no interruption in service, and there's no additional cost. It's planned for. There's no additional taxes to the taxpayers. In our town, we do a similar thing with the fire trucks. We put away $60K every year, and then after year 8 or 9, the money's there. They buy a new fire truck. There's no new appropriations to the taxpayers. These are facilities we have to take care of, and they are in substantial disrepair, and it needs to be addressed.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
How you doing? Chris Long, Jim Standon. I guess the question I have is, when does this get used, and what is it potentially used for? I mean, I don't think that's clear, at least to me. I don't know about anybody else. And who determines who uses it?
Yes, Mrs. Green.
Mr. Hammond, first of all, I'd like to invite you to join the CIP committee. I don't know where you've gone now.
Can you address his question?
Yes, I can. I think that this is a very well-intentioned motion, and ultimately, when the CIP gets on both legs, that we would be very welcoming of a motion like this. But there are a couple of points that I would like to address. How does the money get used? It has to go to a vote of the voters to release money from the fund for some capital project. So perhaps next year, if we want to build a wellness center, we might take out $1 million perhaps. Or it's things like this. If we wanted to upgrade the air conditioning in the gym, perhaps that would be a warrant article next year that would ask you if we could take money out of the capital reserve fund for that very specific project. But what it's a little bit deceptive about how it says no new taxes, because when you take any money out of what would have been going forward to the next year to reduce the tax burden for the next year. It increases your taxes next year. It doesn't have an immediate tax hit, but it does next year. So it's a little bit deceptive. However, I think Mr. Hammond's intention is that we save a significant amount of money every year so that we can plan for our capital expenses. And this is a very worthwhile strategy and something that I would, as a member of the Capital Improvement Plan Committee myself, I would absolutely welcome this. But at this point, I don't think we have a robust enough plan to use a contribution of this size right now. That's just my opinion, but the other question, I do have, Mr. Moderator, one question for Mr. Stokinger, because it's my understanding that the money left over, so to speak, that goes to the Capital Reserve Fund is actually money left over from our capital projects budget. So it's not just general surplus, it's actually money that was not spent this year on capital projects. Am I correct in that, Mr. Stokinger?
Yes, you are.
So what we're asking then is to not spend up to $500,000 to put in a fund next year.
Thank you, Ms. Green. 3 minutes has expired. Barbara, did you have something new to add or on the amendment?
Not on this amendment.
Thank you. Mr. Collins, and then I'll recognize Jack. And
Yeah, just two things. This warrant article doesn't ask anyone to not spend anything. All it says is if there's this much left, it would move to capital reserve up to the amount that's in the warrant article, and the amendment is to move it to 500,000. So if there's 400,000 left, 400,000 gets moved, 200,000, and so on. So the other thing I wanted to point out, in 2014, we got a little aggressive on the school board with this warrant article, and we went to $350,000 to put aside because it's a good idea, and I support it. I think we need to do it, but it failed. So the risk is if you go too high to something like $500,000, it fails, and now you're behind a year. Where we would have had 250, now we have nothing. So just putting that out there, I'm not going to support this.
thank you. Mr. Sapien.
Yeah, and just for clarification, in the case of the pointing, right, we've appropriated those funds in the budget as part of the capital improvement. We were lucky, we saved about $180,000 on that project. This, what we're basically saying is that money that had been appropriated for that would be moved into the possibility of a new capital expenditure down the road. So, yes, we've appropriated the money, and instead of giving the money back, we're hanging on to it. And normally, I don't know, I could go either way, but because of the disrepair of our facilities everywhere, we have old aging buildings, we can never get to it all. We should really be doing this because we're going to get hit, and we're going to get hit hard, and then we'll be having a big argument of why the budget got spiked $2-3 million in a specific year. And I don't remember the numbers year over year on the CIP, but those improvements are in the millions of dollars. So I think we need to start saving for a rainy day, and I think it's prudent that we put aside as much as saving is tough, but it's also wise.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Mike Trasati, 6 Watson Lane, Atkinson, New Hampshire. I just want a little clarification. I got a little confused in that exchange. So money that's not spent in this year's capital gets rolled over up to 250,000, yes, or in it, or plus 250.
This passed.
Up to.
Yes.
Okay. So, question is, how much was not spent this year in the budget, and quite frankly, why? So, if it's in such disrepair, why aren't we spending the money to do this? So, if I get that clarification, thank you.
Sue?
I guess I would ask for clarification. What year are you talking about? Remember, we're on a very odd arrangement here. We're currently in the, let's see if I get this right, 16-17 school year and 16-17 budget. So we won't know what's left until June 30th, 2017, what we've got left in our capital
Okay.
accounts.
So the numbers in here that, as far as what's been spent, that's not year to date.
Year to date?
Well, that's not within, I guess, there's numbers in here that says was expended, what was appropriated and what was expended.
Previous year.
Prior year. So I
Previous
guess
year.
that's the last full year you have, the last full year of data you have.
Yeah,
How about
which
that?
ended in June of 16.
Fine. So I'm just curious what the last full year, do we have that number? How much was appropriated, how much was spent, and how much was left over?
It should be in the documents I don't have right in front of me, but when you said, I was trying to help you clarify the term this year. It's very confusing for voters.
I'm just trying to get a handle of how much was not spent and why.
I guess maybe to clarify a little, how about last year, where you would have a concrete number of what was left over that you put into this fund? Mr. Stokinger, do you have that answer, or Sue, or? I know we can't figure it out this year, but we have last year's figure.
We did contribute the 250,000, basically under the same warrant article at the end of 15. So we had surplus in capital that met the 250 that was contributed.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Collins.
If you look in your handout, the 4,200 account is site improvements. The 4,600 account is building maintenance and improvements. That's right there it tells you the budget was underspent in both of those lines by about $340,000. Don't quote me on that.
Anything new on the amendment to raise the $250,000 to $500,000?
Chris
sir.
Longchamp, Sandown. Something Rob said, it just occurred to me, this has to be from a capital improvement project, it has to be excess funds. Well, to be honest with you, shame on you. If this is in such disrepair that you didn't spend the capital funds, and we're pushing them into here, why aren't we doing the capital projects that we've funded? I mean, I think that's my question.
Okay. Jack, you've been patiently waiting.
Yep, so I want to address that and answer a question that was asked a little bit earlier. Why don't those capital funds get expended? Well, here's the process. We get a budget number for the budget committee. Usually, let's say it's the masonry job. So we go out, we get a budget number. Then after it's been approved, we get into that fiscal year, we put it out to bid. And in many cases, the bid comes in either below or above what we have budgeted. Then we decide whether we're going to do it or not. But in the case of, say, pointing up the gym, it came in at $180,000 underneath. Very justifiable reason why it came in that amount. So the bottom line is, we got the job done, we got it done, and we pushed the bid. We got it done for $180,000. We saved $180,000. That's why those things happen. So they're kind of moving targets when you get any type of capital expenditure. You're dealing with contractors. You get the budget number, you get into the year, you put it out to bid, and then you aggressively go after getting the right number and getting the right contractor. That's why sometimes those funds don't get expended, and sometimes you run out of time, or sometimes, projects get put off or delayed. So that's why.
Thank you. I think Mr. Collins also had answered his question.
Yeah, just
And then
quickly, I'll say to Mr. Longchamp, we have, at the end of the year, there are times that we will spend some of the surplus on capital projects. One year we did the locker rooms, the lockers in the locker rooms. Last year we did ceiling tiles at the middle school. And the idea is for exactly what you said, but we fight with the notion that we don't want to take too much because it wasn't budgeted that way. We don't want to, instead of turning that back to the taxpayers, turn it into other capital projects. So your point's taken, but it's a balancing act.
Thank you. Anything new to the amendment to raise it to $500,000? Yes, Julian.
Julian Kiska, Plastow. On this, I quite understand what capital reserve funds are for. However, I've seen some concerns about people being cold in buildings and buildings being in disrepair. And what I also gathered earlier, that there's $1,116,000 already sitting in this account. Why isn't this money being used to fix those issues now, which is what the funds are for? Or is this only for new projects? Can someone answer that?
Yeah, thank you. Anybody have an answer for Mr. Kishka? Yes, Mrs. Green.
Very good question.
Do you have an answer to his question?
My personal answer is that the issue with this district is not money, it's management.
Yeah, okay. Again, we're not going to have attacks on anybody here tonight. That is out of order, Mrs. Green.
Well, as far as the motion goes, to increase it to 500,000, I would like to see things fixed, not just put money
Okay.
aside.
Anything further on the motion to raise the 250,000 to 500,000? Anything new on the amendment? Mr. Green.
Thank you. The question was, excuse me. The question was asked about why last year's capital plan was so significantly underspent in the site facilities. And if people will remember, the budget for that year was frivolously increased by $250,000 by Mr. Belo.
Mr. Green, you're out of order. Mr. Green, you're out of order. Please
for
sit
a
down.
phony
Mr.
sprinkler
Green.
project at Danville.
Thank you. Mrs. Sherman, did you have something to add? If not, I'm going to move the question. It's on the amendment of the $500,000, not what has happened before. We can discuss that afterward, Mr. Green.
Did you recognize me?
Yes, I did, Mrs. Sherman.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm opposed to raising it up to 500,000 for the exact same reason that Mr. Collins said. I'm really concerned. Sure, I'd like to get all of this stuff fixed tonight and write a check, but I want to do some prudent savings. And to answer Mr. Longchamp's discussion, I think he asked that, we're asking to get budget numbers, in some cases, almost 22 months before we even get to a point where we can spend the money. So when Mr. Sapir was using the brick pointing as an example, to me, that's a perfect one. We got a figure of over 300,000, and yay us, the final number, when we got a company to come and fix those bricks, and I'm thrilled that that's fixed, was less, and we saved some money. Aren't we happy about saving a little bit of money? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. There be nothing new, and I'll move the question. All those, the amendment is to raise the 250,000 to 500,000. All those in favor of the amendment to raise it to 500,000 signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed signify by saying no. No. The amendment fails. The original article is the 250,000. Anything further on the article?
Barbara Kishka?
Yes.
First of all, I want to thank the board and the budget committees. I know it's a lot of work and appreciate all you do. $71 million is a lot to shepherd around. But I do want to ask, it says no amount to be raised by taxation, and as I understand it, this is all old tax money. All this money came from taxes at some point. Is that correct?
Yes.
So
Yes, Mr. Collins.
So it's a relative statement. So yes, it was raised by taxes the year before, but it's not to be raised this year.
So
Again.
it would be fair to say no amount to be raised by new taxation?
And we've discussed that at the board level several times, and I believe we've settled on this wording, I think because there's some prescribed wording from legal on this.
That's correct.
But as we said in Plastow, as Mr. Ranlett is familiar, also the amount to be raised by new taxation is also valid, correct? Yes.
Well, I'm not going to answer for what we did in Plastow, because this is the deliberative session for the Timberlane Regional School District. So does anybody have an answer, Mr. Sappi, an answer to her question?
Yeah, usually, I know in Atkinson, we use the term, this will be funded by raising and appropriating, which means additional taxes. And I think, and Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Garrity, we typically put down no additional funding to be raised by taxes. So the town of Atkinson kind of has a culture where they understand raise and appropriate versus no additional funds will be raised by taxation. But of course, anything that you're paying for, at some point in time, you've been taxed on,
Right.
to be fair.
So I would like to make an amendment, just to make this a little bit more accurate, to amend Article 3 to change no amount to be raised by taxation to no amount to be raised by new taxation.
If you want to hand the motion to Nancy, is there a second on the motion?
I'll second it.
And your name, sir?
Robert Nickerson, Sandon.
Robert Nickerson. Motion on the floor is to insert no amount to be raised by new taxation. Any discussion? Yes, Mrs. Sherman.
So these warrant articles have already been reviewed by council and DRA. This language that the school board of Timberlane has agreed on is perfectly correct. You want to change it and add that kind of language, I guess you have the right to do that, but there's nothing wrong, illegal, or immoral about the way it's written here.
Thank you. Any further discussion? There being none. All those in favor of the amendment to add the word new in front of taxation, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, signify by saying no.
No.
I guess we're going to use voter card. Well, the reason why is because, I mean, you can put a passionate no, and that's what I just heard. So, to be fair in the democratic procedure, we're going to go by the voter card. All those in favor of the amendment to put the word new in front of taxation, hold up your voter card. Again, the amendment is to put the word new in front of it. Okay, you can put them down. Opposed to the amendment, hold up your voter card. Noes have it.
Noes need to be more vocal.
Back to Article number 3 as read. Any discussion on Article number 3? There being none, Article number 3 will appear on the ballot as read. Article number 4. Shall the voters of the Timberlane Regional School District approve the cost items, including in a collective bargaining agreement reached between the Timberlane Support Staff Union and the Timberlane Regional School Board, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing levels over the amount paid in the prior fiscal year. So the estimated increase, $181,332 for 17-18. 18-19, 177,907. 19-20, 181. 846,000 for a total of $541,094. To further raise and appropriate the sum of $181,332 for the 2017-18 fiscal year. Said sum representing the additional cost attributable to the increase in salaries and benefits required by the new agreement over those that would be paid at the current staffing levels. A majority vote is required. Is there a motion to put it on the floor for discussion? Motion made by Mr. Sherman. Is there a second? Mr. Guide? Any discussion, or the presentation will be by Mrs. Sherman.
I'm really pleased to be able to bring this article to you. This is a successful 3-year contract negotiation with our support staff union. They are 162 members strong here at Timberlane. You may know them as para-educators. You may know them as tutors. You may know them as one-on-one or classroom assistants. They are an invaluable member of this teaching community and learning community here. There was a question at the pause till I'm done.
Please, so we can move it on.
Question at the public hearing regarding the fact that this represents in the first year of the contract, the $181,323, a 2% increase in wages and overall costs. And I was asked to break that down for you, so I didn't have a slide made, but I do have the figures from our lawyer, from the union, so everybody has seen these numbers from our Human Resources Department. Thank you very much for your work. Total wages, $129,654.62. And insurance costs, which we need to budget for these costs, $51,668.23 and 26 cents. When you add that all up, it's $181,322.88. So I highly recommend that we give these people a good 3-year contract. The school board supports this. The budget committee supports this. I'd like to see this as written on the ballot.
Thank you. Any further discussion on Article number 4? Yes, Mr. Metzler.
I'd like to take this opportunity. Loud enough. Got all the mics. Yeah. As you've heard many times, we talk about evaluation, accountability, rigor, and support. Our support staff is incredible. They support our teachers. They are worth so much more than this. This is a really fair contract. They were incredible to negotiate with. I hope the community supports this. They are an invaluable, they are very valuable, I should say, commodity, and they just do a great job with our kids. So I hope that we find a way to support this, and we thank our support staff for all you do. Thank you.
Just so you're all aware that this isn't negotiated, that the cost items are, they can't be debated here. They can't be changed by this body. So, yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm here to make a statement
ma'am,
on.
your name?
I was going to get to that in 1 sec. Yeah, it's Tracy DeMarco, D-I-M-A-R-C-O. I'm here to make a statement on behalf of the Timberlane Support Staff Union. So my name is Tracy DeMarco. I am very proud to be a Plastow resident, a Timberlane paraeducator, and the Pollard School Timberlane Support Staff Union building representative. But more importantly, I am an incredibly proud parent of 2 Timberlane students, one of which who has received support from special education, sorry, I'm very nervous about this, assistants and tutors for the past 8 years, experiencing one of the worst diagnoses a parent can receive for their 2-year-old child of cancer. We knew his battle was going to be long, arduous, and uphill. And once being cured, my son's battle would then cross over to the educational arena. Well, I am elated to say that he has secured honors, most times with distinction, throughout his entire educational journey. This was not only earned with lots of hard work on his behalf and his never-give-up attitude, but with the enduring love and commitment that he has received from his special education assistants and tutors. These passionate men and women have given a boy who could have easily had resented school, a profound amount of confidence, love, and appreciation for it, fostering a greater future. It's something which my husband and I will never properly be able to thank incredible paraeducators, the teachers in district for. In the words of Abraham Lincoln, whatever you are, be a good one. Well, from a parent's perspective, the paraeducators in this district are great ones. The remainder of what I will read is in the words of my amazing colleague, as well as the Vice President of the Timberlane Support Staff Union, a member of the TSSU Contract and Negotiations team, and was at every negotiations meeting, including all the meetings held for this proposed contract, but who is with great regret unable to be with us tonight for unforeseen reasons, Laurie Hirschenroder. There are over 160 Timberlane paraeducators. We are educational assistants, special education assistants, tutors, one-to-one tutors, LNAs, and library assistants. We are your friends, we are family, we are neighbors. Most of us live in our district. In a school year, we work 180 days with students and 2 professional development days. Contrary to popular belief, we are not paid for holiday, winter, spring, or summer breaks. We are hardworking, dedicated individuals who go above and beyond what is expected of us in our daily responsibilities. We are honored and privileged to welcome, to encourage, to celebrate, to comfort, to protect, to assist, and to serve all students of Timberlane. We work alongside our incredible teachers, specialists, the therapists, and administrators that work in our buildings. We are proud to be part of an outstanding team that strives to do our best every single day. Passing warrant Article 4 is a move in the right direction. Our district should be a place that can attract and keep such key members of the school team. The
Excuse
time
me,
is...
Miss, I'm sorry, but you reached your 3 minutes.
All right,
so
thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Heffernan.
Dennis Heffernan, Plasto. I see that it was recommended by the school board 7-1, and I'm just curious why there was one dissenting vote. Thank you.
That doesn't have to be answered if it doesn't want to be. Mrs. Green.
Hi. I did not take, I thought about this contract and I thought the wage increase was reasonable, but I feel that not enough of the cost of health insurance is on the employee. So that's, in this day and age, I don't see public sector workers should be increasing or decreasing the amount of insurance premiums they pay. And this contract does give an increase in what the employer pays versus the employee. So that was my reason for withholding my approval.
Thank you. Anything new to article number? Please.
Louise.
Respect and decorum, please.
Absolutely.
I knew it.
I'll do my best.
Please.
Is this mic on, Mr. Green? That's a Reagan reference. Louise, sorry, sir. Louise Pajak from Sandown. I just want to make a statement about costs for paraeducators. We have paraeducators whom I see slicing meat at Demoulas so that they can afford to live in a house in our community. They deserve this contract. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anything new to article number 4?
Yes, yes.
Hold on. If there is nothing else new, I'm going
No, this
to
is
place
new.
it as read. So, I mean, if
This is new.
go ahead, Mrs. Sherman.
I have all the wage scales here. These are people who are averagely paid per hour around $13 an hour and work sometimes part-time for us and sometimes full-time. But full-time isn't 60-hour week here. It's about 32 and a half. Thank you. $13 an hour. The fact that we are going to pay for their insurance at $51,000 in this $181,000 package is, I don't want my paras to have to pay any more for health insurance. My humble opinion.
There be nothing new. Article 4 will appear on the ballot as read. Article number 5, shall the voters of the Timberlane Regional School District, if Article 4 is defeated, authorize the Timberlane Regional School Board to call one special meeting at its option to address Article 4 cost items only. Without this article, the district would have to petition Superior Court for a special school district meeting. This saves the district the expense of attorney fees and court costs. Majority vote. Is there a motion put on the floor as read? Motion by Mr. Ward. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Gerns. Any discussion on this warrant? There being none, Article 5 will appear on the ballot as read. This is how we're going. Article 6, acceptance report. Shall the Timberlane Regional School District accept reports of agents, auditors, and committees as written in the 2016 annual report? Majority vote required. Is there a motion to put this on the floor as read? Motion by Dan Guide. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Collins. Any discussion on this warrant article? There being none, this will appear on the ballot as read. Here we go. Article number 7, change auditing firms on warrant petitions by Donna Green and others, and being subject to RSA 21J19, shall the Timberlane Regional School District be required to change auditing firms every 4 years or fewer, starting with the 2016-17 auditing year, and that no auditor or firm will be reappointed within 8 years of their last appointment. Majority vote required. Is there a motion to put this on the floor as read? Motion by Mrs. Green. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Collins. Making the presentation would be, well, if somebody would like to make a presentation. If not, you don't have to. Mrs. Green.
Well, I'd like to speak to it. I don't have a presentation prepared, but the district has been in existence for over 52 years, and no one has been able to tell me when was the last time we changed auditors. For all I know, we haven't ever changed auditors. I can't determine when the last time was. This is bad business practice. It is standard business practice to change auditors on a regular basis, so that the auditor and the entity being audited do not get too familiar and comfortable with each other. This is very standard business practice, and every year I have asked the board and the SAU board to change auditors, and every year they have defeated that motion for whatever reason. I think it needs to be put in the people's hands to require the district to do the right thing and practice just common sense business practice. We need to know that our money is being expended totally correctly, and we need, frankly, we need some internal auditing. Mr. Collins will tell you that we've had 14 different individual auditors come through the district in the time that we've had the same auditing firm. This is nowhere near the equivalent of having a new auditing firm. And this is the very least you should expect of a good steward of your tax dollars. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Guy.
I'd like to make a motion to amend that article to strike all of it and read, shall the Timberlane Regional School Board continue to select an auditing firm as needed for its annual audit? This article is advisory and non-binding.
Second.
The second by Mr. Belo. Discussion on the amendment. Shall the Timberlane Regional School District continue to select an auditing firm as needed for its annual audit? This article is advisory and non-binding. Majority. Nope. He struck that too. Mr. Belo.
Okay, if I could find a working mic.
Mine works.
Put my name, print it.
Maybe this should be in the CIP.
Get a few from Dr. Metzer. It looks like he's doing a news conference.
Okay. This is, in my estimation, I think Mr. Guide's amendment makes a lot more sense this year in particular than the one that was originally proposed. And the main reason is that, as well, I think all of us up here know, but I don't know how many of you out there know, Mr. Stokinger has decided to retire. He's to become one of my heroes. You know, one of these days, I have faith I'll be able to retire when I see people like him. But anyhow, he's retiring. He's our financial director. Having to hire a new finance person to handle the $70-odd million budget for here, plus the SAU budget, plus the Hampstead budget, which is all told, what, about 90 million total, and have a new person coming in at the beginning of July, having to start an audit with a brand new auditing firm in a month, because that audit starts on or about August 1st every year, is like a recipe for disaster. You've got a brand new person who's just learning our systems, trying to guide an auditing firm who has no clue of our systems. This is just the wrong year for this, in my estimation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Green.
Thank you. The fact is that this is the perfect opportunity to change auditors when there is a change in business administrator. This is an absolutely perfect opportunity. Perhaps the school board would like to wait another 52 years until we change auditors. Sure. This is a matter of importance to every taxpayer, and there is no reason on earth why we have not been conducting our affairs in accordance with the with best business practice. And as I've said before, the issue in this district is not money, it is management. And this is a prime example of how our district is not well managed.
Mrs. Green, thank you. Anything new on the amendment? Go ahead, Mr. Green.
Thank you, Arthur Green Sandown. A little earlier in the evening, Mr. Guide expressed some discomfort that the term honest default budget was in some sense an insult to the school board. And ironically, Mr. Guide has put an amendment on the table, which we're dealing with now.
Mr. Green, I don't want to continue having a
Mr. Guide has put an amendment now.
I would like to ask you a question.
Which comes as close as possible to being a straight-up vote for irresponsibility as we can get.
Please sit down. Thank you. Anything new on the amendment?
Hi, Erica Lemire, Plasto.
Yes.
I work for a bank, and we have auditors, FDIC, state auditors, independent auditors, internal auditors, and they're constantly changing. They're not the same auditors all the time. If what you're doing and what you're saying to us is that you are doing the best to your ability to run this school board, you should have nothing to be afraid of having somebody new come in and take a look at what you're doing.
Thank you.
I mean, I don't understand why any taxpayer would be averse to that.
Thank you. Mr. Vitale.
Thank you. Ty Vitale, Plastow, New Hampshire. Yeah, I'm in favor of this. I signed the petition, and I don't really appreciate it being changed on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything new on the amendment? Okay, there being none, a yes vote, shall the Timberlane Regional School Board continue to select an auditing firm as needed for its annual audit. This article, advisory and non-binding. A yes vote is in agreement with the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Noes? No. Well, here we go again. If you're in favor of the amendment, please hold up your voter card. A yes vote supports the amendment. Shall the Timberlane Regional School Board continue to select an auditing firm as needed for its annual audit? This article advisory and non-binding.
Should I tell everybody that advisory and non-binding?
And you said another? Nine. No? You can put them down. All those opposed? Steve, just to let you know, I counted you up there.
Wow. Wow.
The amendment passes. So, the amendment on the floor shall the... Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Sorry. 41. Sorry, Jim. The amendment still passes. Okay, the amendment on the floor. Shall the Timberlane Regional School Board continue to select an auditing firm as needed for its annual audit? This article is advisory and non-binding. Any further discussion, anything new? There being none, this will appear on the ballot as amended.
Mr. Moderator, could I have the vote, please? What was the count?
103 to 75. So 103 to 75.
Motion to restrict reconsideration.
There's been a motion to restrict reconsideration, a second by Mr. Guide. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Noes?
No.
Ayes have it. Moving on to Article number 8. Now I want to remind everybody that personal attacks or comments directed at individual people are not going to be allowed. We're going to treat everybody with respect that everybody deserves in this forum. Article number 8, vote of confidence in Timberlane Regional School District. Do the voters have confidence in the Timberlane Superintendent, Dr. Earl Metzler? Is there a motion to put it on the floor? Are you supporting the motion put on the floor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Jack? Yes. Is there a second? Your name, ma'am?
Nola Whitman, Danville, New Hampshire.
Thank you. Mr. Sapia?
Yeah. I want to speak to this. I've been doing this for about 15 years now, in whatever capacity, and I've seen a lot of warrant articles. I find this one to be extremely offensive. I think it's personal in nature, and I think it's well below our district to even consider such a thing. If you pass this, we have become the Washington that we don't like watching on TV every night. We need to stay united as a district. There's a right way of doing things and a wrong way of doing things. And there's a process. And I find this to be well beneath anything that this district should even be discussing. It's inappropriate and it's wrong.
Thank you. Any further discussion on warrant Article 8? Yes, Mr. Belo.
My horse for a working microphone. Thank you. I'd like to make an amendment to Article 8. I'd like to replace the entire article text with the following. Do the citizens of the Timberlane Regional School District have confidence that the superintendent of schools will continue to advance the school district's core values of rigor, accountability, evaluation, and support as he has over the past 5 years? This article is advisory and non-binding, majority vote required.
I'll second that.
Motion been made, and the second was Lee. Okay, do the citizens of the Timberlane Regional School District have confidence in the superintendent of schools will continue to advance the school district's core values of rigor, accountability, evaluation, and support as he has over the last 5 years? This article advisory and non-binding, majority vote required. That's the amendment for discussion on the floor.
Chris Longchamp, stand down. I just want to say a couple things. I mean, I have 2 kids in the school system, and I think this is one of the best school systems that we've ever been involved in. And if that has anything to do with Earl Metzler, then congratulations. I think you're doing a good job. I guess that's it.
Thank you. I'm sorry, ma'am.
That's okay. I want to preface everything by saying that this is a letter from Sean O'Neill. I have it, and forgive me, I don't have my reading glasses. This was not expected that I would be doing this for him. I'm going to start reading it. And
At some point, I will probably call you out of order, and I will have the district attorney explain why. So
okay, that's fair. I just felt that he was unable to attend that he should have a chance to speak. That's all. I'm sorry?
No, please.
I'm kind of nervous about this. It's not
I know,
my-
ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Confidence. Webster's dictionary defines confidence as the faith or belief that one will act in the right, proper, or effective way. Have confidence in a leader. This warrant article is placed before you to seek your vote of confidence or lack thereof in our superintendent.
All right, ma'am, I'm going to call you out of order. Mr. O'Shaughnessy, do you want to address the...
I need a mic.
I think this one works. This one works.
Okay. I'm sure most of you aren't surprised that I'm speaking to this warrant article. I'm sure most of you were somewhat surprised to see the warrant article on the warrant. In my legal opinion, if you remember, we're here to conduct school district business, which means raise and appropriate funds for the operation of the school district, and to elect officials, and to conduct other school district business. In my legal opinion, the article before you is not legitimately before the voters for several important reasons. First of all, as you all are well aware, the superintendent is not an employee of the Timberlanes Regional School District. He's an employee of SAU 55, and his employment, therefore, is governed by the SAU 55 school board and not the school district. Even if he was a Timberlane School District employee, his employment would be governed by the board and not the voters. The legislative body in Concord gave the authority to the school board to oversee the employment of administrators and did not give that authority to the district. And for the district to exercise any authority to really even to discuss an employee at a district meeting of this nature would be invalid and wouldn't be legitimate and is improper at the outset. I think another important reason is that he is an employee, and the board doesn't disparage, slander, or demean employees in public board session, so it makes no sense that it would happen here at a school district meeting any more than it would make sense for it to happen at a school board meeting. The discussion, if it were to go on, would result in a personal attack on the superintendent, and personal attacks in annual school district meetings have never been in order, and they've never been part of the discourse between the voters and the board. He's not an employee of the district, so this is not the district of the business. You're here to raise and appropriate funds and conduct other district business. This is not the business of the district. I think you need to understand why the warrant article is there, because there's a law that says if they receive a petition warrant article, they have to put it on the warrant. They don't have a choice, and if they don't, they can face a criminal violation level penalty. So if they get a petition warrant article that says, shall we elect Mickey Mouse to be our governor, they would have to put that petition warrant article on this warrant no matter how ridiculous or out of place it is. So it has no legitimate place here today, and my legal opinion is that the warrant itself and any related discussion of any personal or individual, and especially any employee here today, is neither material, pertinent, or relevant to the school district and what you're discussing here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Take all that into consideration with the future comments. Mr. Vitale.
Mr. Attorney, I agree with you. I agree with you that, you know, what you just said, if you get a warrant article, you have to put it on the ballot, period. We have a motion on the floor to change something that was signed by a bunch of citizens. I did not sign it, but I don't see how we can change it. If someone says you have to put it on the ballot, you have to put it on the ballot. That was your legal opinion. In my opinion, changing it, you can't do it. In addition, I think the new one that is proposed by Mr. Bielo is biased. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything new on the amendment? Mr. Sapia.
Yeah, I guess I have a statement and then a question. Really, the way you express yourself in these types is by electing the school board member that you believe is going to represent your value sets here. That's number one. And the question for the attorney is, if this is not a legally binding, or should I say an illegal warrant, which I agree with everything you said, does DRA come in and pull this from the ballot?
No. Now,
I think his answer was no.
my answer is no.
Okay.
There we go. Thank you. Yeah, Barbara, if you hold on. Yes, Mrs. Green, to the amendment, please.
Yes. I agree with Mr. Vitale that citizens petition warrant articles should not be changed. And here I am, the victim of having my own warrant article changed by my own school board members. And again, school board members are changing this petition. This is a meeting of the people, it's not a meeting of the school board. And the people are trying to direct the business of the board, whether it's through this warrant article or through Article 7 or any citizens petition article. And they have a right to do so. And I really resent the fact that the board takes it upon itself to change citizens petitions. Now, if a citizen wanted to change a citizen's petition, that's an entirely different
Mrs.
matter.
Green.
No, and
no,
my
no,
second
Mrs. Green, I'm going to
point-
call you out. Shut my
I
mic off,
have
please.
a second point.
I'm going to call you out of order because school board members, like myself, we're all citizens of the Timberlane Regional School District. So you're personally attacking other board members. If you have a comment on the amendment,
I do.
I'll give you a little leeway. Go ahead.
Thank you. I believe that everything that Attorney O'Shaughnessy said concerning the original warrant article applies to the amendment.
Thank you. Barbara.
So, in order to understand the amendment a little better, I'm trying to understand why it says recommended by the school board 600 at the end of Article 8. I understand this is an out of place.
Yep, Mr. Guide.
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Guide.
Okay, so the way that we were explained to with all of these warrant articles is the way we voted is the way that we are voting. Is if we were to go to the voters booth and vote, that's the way we voted on all of the warrant articles.
So that's showing support for Dr. Metzler.
Exactly.
Got
exactly.
it. Okay.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the amendment?
Kathy J. Otis Atkinson. I'm going to ask you to vote for the amendment. Dr. Metzler, I've been in this district for 43 years and very proud of it, let me tell you. And I have never worked for someone that, is he tough? Yeah. Does he demand a lot? Yes, he does. But that's why our schools have improved so much. And let me tell you, from 43 years ago to now, they are super. And they're getting better and better. And I had half these people up here, so I know. And I'm very proud to be an administrator. And I don't expect anything. And I know that he'll give it back to me just as much as I give it to him. So I'm very proud to be here. And
Thank
vote
you.
for the amendment.
Any further discussion on the amendment? There being none, all those in favor of the amendment, do the citizens of the Timberlane Regional School District have confidence in that the superintendent of schools will continue to advance the school district's core values of rigor, accountability, evaluation, and support he has over the last 5 years? This article advisory and non-binding. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Ayes have it. So the article on the floor now is, do the citizens of the Timberlane Regional School District have confidence on the superintendent of schools will continue to advance the school district's core values of rigor, accountability, evaluation, and support he has over the last 5 years? This article is advisory and non-binding. Majority vote required. Any further discussion on the amendment? There being none, Article 8 will appear on the ballot as amended. The
Mr.
next order
Moderator.
of business is
Mr. Moderator.
there's a motion to restrict reconsideration on Amendment 8, seconded by Mr. Gerns. All those in favor of restrict reconsideration signify by saying aye. Aye. Noes? No. Ayes have it. Special school board meeting. will
Mr.
meet in
Moderator,
room-
I would like to make a comment.
Dr. Metzler and then Mrs. Green.
I'd like to take this opportunity, one of our goals is to celebrate excellence, and I think this individual in the room will probably be embarrassed, but I think it would be a mistake if we don't take the opportunity to thank and congratulate principal of Sanborn High School, was recently named the Principal of the Year, so I'd like to congratulate Brian Stack. Nice job, Brian.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Green, you had a quick word, because I'm going to adjourn the meeting.
Yes, I do. In this deliberative session, we've just gutted 2 citizens petition articles, and I don't see why anybody would ever put forward a citizens petition article in this district again. And frankly, I don't know why anyone would come to deliberative session again. This has been
Mrs. Green, that's out of order, because this is the democratic process. Democracy at its best. Special town meeting, the school board will be meeting in room 719 immediately following the session to take recommendation actions on warrant articles. The budget committee will meet in 716. Vote on March 17th. I adjourn the meeting. March 14th.